there used to be sort of a radical alternative of doing away with the capitalist system and alternative trade as being a vehicle for doing that you don't hear very much about anymore. So now the real options that are on the table for most groups are whether you want to cater to the mainstream capitalist consumer and really work the capitalist system, or if you want to provide an opportunity to opt out for a select few people who can opt out in a handful of ways in their everyday life. So I guess those would both be softer capitalisms, but different brands that conflict, and that's where the conflict is now, I think.
Yeah, I think in the trade agreements, I mean, you could argue that, but then you could also argue that the radical element is to create institutional ties that don't exist. I mean, to build new forms of solidarity or new forms of interconnections that, you know, culturally, or even just, you know, transportation networks. You know, why do you have to go to Miami to go to some other part of the Caribbean? You know, the question of building, you know, an infrastructure. But then if you look at IRSA, you know, if you look at the sort of, you know, the hegemonic versions of that, it always ends up bringing you through Miami, you know, instead of, you know, or at least if it doesn't, it just seems to rip right through a sensitive ecological area where people happen to be living. So there's like, you know, the question of who's in the driver's seat shapes where, of course, the highway, as in the U.S., it's well known, you know, where the highway actually goes.